Greetings. I am Kelly Jackson Charles, a lecturer at the University of the West Indies, Five Islands campus, situated in the beautiful twin islands of Antigua and Barbuda. Today, I will guide you through the systematic process undertaken by peer reviewers when assessing new resources on MERLOT. Given the abundance of resources accessible, it is imperative to have a rigorous peer review system in operation to assess the quality and efficacy of these materials. This guarantees that educators can rely on the resources available on MERLOT to be precise, current, and pedagogically effective. The learning outcomes for this presentation on peer review processes in MERLOT include understanding the criteria and standards used in peer reviews, and recognizing the role of peer reviewers in ensuring the accuracy, relevance, and pedagogical soundness of resources available on MERLOT. The review process for resources submitted to MERLOT involves two main phases: a material review followed by a peer review phase. Today's presentation will highlight the peer review phase. In the initial material review phase, the team evaluates the submitted resource based on a standardized set of criteria, looking at areas such as quality of the actual content and potential instructional uses. We also identify the material format, whether it's a textbook, learning exercise, or online course, etc. The goal of this first phase is to filter out any resources that don't meet basic quality standards. Only those that pass this initial phase move on to the more in-depth peer review phase, which is our focus for today's presentation. Once a resource passes the material review, it goes through a rigorous peer review process conducted by faculty subject matter experts. During this phase, the reviewers provide detailed feedback evaluating the resource across multiple dimensions such as content quality and accuracy, instructional design and effectiveness for learning, technical quality, navigation and functionality, accessibility and universal design considerations, and overall value and potential classroom use. The peer reviewers rate the material on a 0 to 5 scale for each of these areas and provide detailed comments explaining their ratings and feedback. This phase really gets into the nuances and specifics around the resource's quality, accuracy, and pedagogical effectiveness. Let's walk through a recent review that I conducted on a web resource titled Introducing Developmental Disability Through a Disability Studies Perspective. The entire review process is facilitated through an intuitive interface on the merlot.org website. The online system guides reviewers through each phase with clear instructions and prompts. Subject matter experts access a structured review template that lays out each review criteria they need to evaluate, including prompts about what to look for. The rating scales and fields for entering feedback are all integrated right into the online forms. This allows reviewers to work through the evaluations methodically and provide comprehensive feedback. Now let's take a closer look at one of the actual review templates that I used. On this slide, you can see the peer review template for evaluating an online course resource. This is actually reference material, and I list that in the type of material. The template begins by prompting the reviewer to provide a general description overview of the material. This includes things like the subject matter and topic covered, and descriptions of how it is structured and organized. The overall format or type of resource it is, of course, is also on this screen. Providing this overview allows the reviewer to orient themselves with the resource before diving into a more detailed evaluation of criteria. It also gives useful context for educators who will eventually view the completed review. As you can see on the template here, I entered a description about this resource. It's an open educational resource that explores developmental disability from a unique lens. I share who the authors are and that the resource delves into the concept of disability as a social construct, and so on. Moving on in the peer review template, the next section prompts the reviewer to provide details on the technical requirements and intended usage of the resource. For the technical requirements, this covers any special software, hardware, or technology needed to properly access and use the material. If it is a website, app, or online tool, the reviewer will list out the operating systems and maybe even browser versions and so on. Then, for the usage section, the reviewer indicates the major learning goals or primary purpose of the resource. It could be details like the specific topics, skills, or competencies it aims to teach. Some of this information may be pre-populated from what the author or creator originally submitted with the resource. However, the reviewer has the ability to clarify, expand, or rephrase the usage details in their own words based on their expert assessment. After providing the overview details, the template moves into sections focused on recommended instructional uses and target student populations for the resource. For recommended uses, the reviewer is prompted to suggest specific ways the material could be effectively implemented in courses or learning environments. This goes beyond just stating what the resource is intended for. The reviewer draws from their subject matter expertise to analyze and describe ideal use cases, such as using it as a primary textbook or course material, or incorporating it as a supplement to classroom instruction. You'll see here that I discuss how it could be used in class. This resource can serve as a valuable tool during in-class discussions or lectures to introduce students to the concept of developmental disability from a unique perspective, and so on. The reviewer provides a rationale for each recommended use based on the resource's design, scope, and pedagogical effectiveness. The next section asks the reviewer to identify the target student populations that would benefit most from using this resource based on factors like academic level, primary or secondary school, or even college level, even specific majors, disciplines, or educational contexts that this resource might align with, and demographics like age range or limited English proficiency. This targeting helps educators understand which specific student populations may be a better fit for utilizing the resource most effectively. The template then moves on to have the reviewer evaluate any prerequisite skills or prior knowledge that students would need in order to effectively utilize and benefit from this resource. Identifying prerequisites is important as it allows educators to properly determine if their students have the necessary foundation before assigning or implementing the material. The reviewer would list out any prerequisite competencies, and I've listed a few here: basic computer skills, for example, navigating hyperlinks, and certainly you need a grasp of standard English. You might also consider specific concepts or topics students should have already mastered, and any required skills like mathematical abilities. For example, if this was a calculus tutorial, the reviewer might note prerequisites like students should have a strong grasp of algebra, trigonometry, and functions before attempting this resource. After covering the overview details, recommended uses, and prerequisites, the peer review template transitions into a section focused specifically on evaluating the quality of the actual content contained in the resource. This section utilizes a multi-point rating scale where the reviewer rates the content quality across several key criteria such as accuracy and credibility of the information presented, alignment with relevant standards, theories, or practices, current and up-to-date coverage of the subject matter, comprehensiveness and depth appropriate for the stated learning objectives, freedom from any errors, inconsistencies, or misleading content, and more specific criteria depending on the resource type. The reviewer selects a rating, typically ranging from poor which could be indicated by 0.25, or excellent, as indicated by a rating of 5 for each of these content quality dimensions. In addition to the ratings, this section also has open fields for the reviewer to elaborate on the major strengths and potential concerns regarding the content quality. For example, under strengths, I noted that the resource explores disability as a social construct, distinguishing between impairment and disability, and delving into the historical evolution of the perception of disability, and so on. One of the concerns that I shared is that incorporating interactive elements like quizzes, discussions, or case studies within the resource can engage users more actively and facilitate better understanding of the content, in my opinion. So this blend of qualitative comments along with the quantitative ratings provides a rich multidimensional assessment of the resource's content quality from the subject matter expert's perspective. In a similar manner to evaluating content quality, the template also has reviewers rate the potential effectiveness of the resource for promoting learning and student understanding. This section prompts the expert reviewer to consider factors such as how well the resource aligns with and supports specific learning objectives or standards, its ability to be logically integrated into an existing course or curriculum, the instructional design and strategies used to build conceptual understanding, and whether there are goals that are easy to identify within the resource. A reviewer might include the presence of student engagement features like interactives, multimedia, real-world examples, and even opportunities for active learning, practice, and reinforcement of key concepts. The reviewer again rates the resource's effectiveness across these types of criteria using the same ranking scale ranging from 0.25 to 5. The strengths of the resource also are detailed here in the text box. The material could be used at various stages of the learning process, for example, and that might be important to note. From introducing foundational concepts to facilitating in-depth discussions and critical analysis. One concern that I had here is that you need to ensure that this particular resource is accessible to users with disabilities by incorporating features like alternative text for images and even options for screen reader compatibility. After evaluating the content quality and professional potential instructional effectiveness, the template then asks the reviewer to rate the overall ease of use for the resource. This assesses user experience factors that can impact how easily students and educators are able to access, navigate, and interact with the material. Specific criteria in this section include navigation and user interface. How intuitive and well-designed are the navigational menus, controls, and layout? Is the content structured and sequenced in a logical, user-friendly manner? You might also consider customization. Can components be easily extracted, reordered, or customized by an instructor? And are there help features or support to use the resource, like FAQs or tutorials? And also, are there any technical requirements? The reviewer provides a general rating on the scale for these ease of use dimensions, and there are also open fields for the reviewer to elaborate on any particular strengths, like an exceptionally clean and intuitive interface design, or concerns such as the one listed here. After the reviewer has provided ratings and comments across all the criteria sections, the online template system automatically populates an overall numeric rating for the resource based on the individual dimension scores. There is also a general comments field where the reviewer can add any final thoughts or observations about the resource that were not already covered in the other sections. Additionally, the template provides a space for the reviewer to enter comments that are for the author's eyes only. This allows the reviewer to give any constructive feedback, suggestions, or critiques directly to the resource creator that may not be appropriate for the public. Once the reviewer has completed all relevant fields and is satisfied with their evaluation, they can then submit the entire review template through the online system. Of course, you also have the option to save for later and come back and make any edits. Once the peer reviews are complete, the detailed reviewer ratings and comments are published publicly on MERLOT alongside the actual resource. Note that, however, any comments marked for the author remain private between the reviewer and the resource creator. Overall, this system of evaluation allows any educator exploring open educational resources on the site to easily view the expert peer review feedback before deciding if they want to adopt or adapt that particular resource for their course. The peer reviews provide incredible value by having subject matter experts thoroughly validate the quality and educational effectiveness of OER materials based on standardized criteria. This comprehensive submission process ensures that each open educational resource undergoes a standardized, multidimensional, expert peer review that provides thorough qualitative and quantitative evaluation data to educators. Thank you so much for your time and attention.